This video is on Chapter 18, Cost, Behavior, and Cost Volume Profit Analysis. I will be reviewing some of your homework assignments, the alternate exercises 7, 9, 10, and 14. So again, these are similar to your homework assignments, but not the exact same numbers. Also, make sure that you have already watched the recorded lecture that I provided for this chapter, because in these videos, I am only going over the homework assignments. So we're going to look at contribution margin, break-even analysis, and a contribution margin income statement. So the first one here we're looking at is a company that makes jeans. They sell for $150 and they cost $105 per unit in variable cost. Fixed costs are $80,000 in total. So remember, the other part of this chapter is separating all of the cost into either variable cost or fixed cost. And the reason we do that is so that we can actually use these numbers to analyze how the company is doing. So first we want to look at the contribution margin per unit. Contribution margin is revenue minus cost, and notice that this is on a per unit basis. So this company has cost of $105 on revenue of $150, so their contribution margin is $45 per unit. So now we want to look at this in terms of a ratio. So to get the ratio, we take the contribution margin and divide by the selling price. So here it's 45 divided by 150. So their contribution margin ratio is 30. So that means for every sale they make, their costs are 70% and their contribution margin is 30%. So here we can project out if they sell 8,000 units, we'll just take their revenue of 150 times 8,000, their cost of 105 times 8,000, and then subtract to get the contribution margin. So if they sell 8,000 units, subtracting their variable costs, they'll have a contribution margin or gross profit of $360, but then we also have to subtract the fixed costs, so their net income on 8,000 units would be $280,000. So the next one, we will also compute contribution margin on a per unit basis and the ratio like we just did, and we're going to look at something called break even. So we can compute break-even in units or in sales dollars. Remember that break-even is the point where they neither earn an income nor incur a loss. So contribution margin, revenue minus variable cost, ratio, contribution margin divided by the revenue. So here, their gross profit is 20%, which means their variable costs represent 80%. So you can see that here in this chart. Break even in units, we take our fixed cost and divide by contribution margin per unit. So they need to sell 14,500 units to just break even. If they sell more than 14,500, they will earn some income, and if they sell less than 14,500, they will have a net loss. So instead of determining how many units they need to sell to break even, you can also determine it in sales dollars. We take the fixed cost and divide by the contribution margin ratio. So they need to sell 2,320,000 in order to break even. So now we're going to look at a contribution margin income statement. Contribution margin, remember, is revenue minus variable cost. So a contribution margin income statement focuses on separating the variable and the fixed cost. So remember, to break even, it will be our fixed cost divided by our contribution margin ratio. Fixed costs are 464. The ratio is 160 minus 128 divided by 160. So here it's 20%. They need to sell 2.320, and we just showed that computation. And this is a contribution margin income statement at the break-even point. So this will prove that they will have zero net income. Sales are $2,320,000. Variable costs are 80% of that, because we just determined that the contribution margin ratio is 20%. So that means variable costs are 80%. Subtract out our fixed cost of 464, and we have proven that our net income is zero. So this is the break-even revenue for this company. Now we can take a look at a different scenario. What if their fixed cost increase by $130,000? Then what is the revenue they need in order to break even? So before it was 464. Now we're looking at another scenario where their fixed cost increased by $130,000. So fixed costs now will be 464 plus 130 divided by that 20%. Now they need to sell $2,970,000 to break even if their fixed cost increased by 130. And we can prove that here. So again, we have net income of zero. The last exercise is 1814 alternate. So we have a product that sells for 140. The last exercise is 1814. This is similar to your exercise 1814. They have revenue per unit of 184, variable cost of 138, and fixed cost of 632. Their sales manager predicts that their annual sales will be 40,200, and the cost, they're looking at increasing the cost from 184 to 202. Variable costs are expected to increase to 142, and fixed costs will stay the same at 632. So what income will they earn? So we're looking at revenue in units, 40,200 at 202, so multiply that out. Variable costs now will be 142, so multiply that, subtract to get the contribution margin, and subtract our fixed costs, which are 632, and their net income, if this scenario holds true, will be $1,780,000. Your last question at Connect is an Excel simulation. You completed one of these in Chapter 15, so if you need a refresher, you can go back to Chapter 15 and review the Excel simulation orientation videos. So you will complete an Excel simulation on the high-low method. The high-low method is a way to separate our variable and fixed cost. And you will do some CVP analysis, which is similar to what we just did in these last two exercises. This concludes the video on Chapter 18.